Number 8. Kayle Goodall. On May the 15th of 2021, a British soldier pulled into a McDonald's drive-thru in such an intoxicated state that she tried placing a food order to a police officer who'd arrived on location to arrest her. Lance Corporal Kayle Goodall had been out drinking with friends in Richmond, North Yorkshire, before returning to the Catterick garrison. Surveillance cameras would capture her driving erratically as she was heading to a McDonald's that was about half a mile from the base. She drove to the drive-thru window after failing to notice that the restaurant was closed and cordoned off. A few moments later, a police car pulled alongside Goodall. The officer tried speaking to Goodall but was understandably surprised when she began reading off items from the menu. She was removed from the car and blew into a breathalyzer, which revealed that she was over 3 times the legal limit. Goodall was fined and given 12 months of community service and banned from driving for 27 months. The ban effectively meant that she'd no longer be able to perform her duties, as she had a specialist driving and communication role in the army. Goodall would also face a military disciplinary hearing in the incident's aftermath. Number 7. Calvis Rodriguez Tormes. In 2020, a dispute at a drive-thru over the delay of a $40 food order led to the murder of a Burger King employee. 31-year-old Ashley Mason became irate and started arguing with 27-year-old Desmond Armand Joshua Jr., who just started working at the restaurant. Mason was accompanied by her 13-year-old daughter, who reported that Joshua was talking mad trash about them behind the drive-thru window. Mason was given a $40 refund by the manager and asked to leave, which she did. She then phoned and complained to her husband, 37-year-old Calvis Rodriguez Tormes, about the perceived disrespect. He arrived at the restaurant in his work truck, where he kept a handgun, and challenged Joshua to a fight. Cell phone footage, which hasn't been made available to the public, allegedly showed Rodriguez Tormes putting the employee in a headlock and attempting to choke him out during the altercation. After a shift manager broke up the fight, he'd reportedly told Mason, "Bring me the fire," referencing his gun. Under questioning, Rodriguez Tormes reported that he got back into his truck and closed the door. He then allegedly saw Joshua jumping over his wife's car and heading towards the truck. Rodriguez Tormes fired a single shot at the Burger King employee, which struck him in the chest. He was later pronounced dead at a local hospital. Rodriguez Tormes was arrested at his home and told deputies that he destroyed the weapon used in the shooting. He was charged with first-degree murder with a firearm, destruction of evidence and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, while his wife was charged with principal to first-degree murder and aggravated assault with a firearm. Number 6. Imane McRae. In January of 2021, a man was shot at a McDonald's drive-thru in Indianapolis following an argument about music. While waiting to order, 22-year-old Imane McRae and her friends were listening to a late Chicago rapper. Jesus Medrano, aged 23, reportedly didn't like it, and a verbal argument ensued after he'd pulled behind their Honda Fit. Surveillance footage showed that Medrano then got back into his car and seemingly bumped into the Honda. He got out and they argued some more. Medrano went to the rear driver's side door of his vehicle before knocking off the Honda's passenger side mirror. He then pulled back with his arms outstretched and palms facing upwards after being threatened with an object from the open window of the Honda's front passenger side. It was presumed to have been a gun, but it wasn't clearly distinguishable in the video. Medrano then dropped to the ground after being shot in the head, and the Honda fled the scene. He was taken to a local hospital in critical condition and passed away 3 weeks later. McRae later gave officers her version of events, claiming that Medrano, enraged by the music, was yelling that he was from Chicago. According to McRae, he was cursing at them, throwing gang signs, and appeared to put a gun in his waistband. No weapon was found in his car or at the scene when the police searched it the following day. McRae admitted to shooting Medrano after he'd allegedly punched one of her friends and struck the car's mirror. She was charged with voluntary manslaughter, and her trial is ongoing. Number 5. Elena Aguilar. In 2019, a woman was arrested in Oregon following an incident at a Beaverton Taco Bell in which she'd given cognac to an employee. At around 1:20 a.m., 23-year-old Elena Aguilar reached out her driver's side window and poured a bottle of Hennessy into the mouth of an apparently willing drive-thru employee. It was reported that the two didn't know each other. The unnamed worker would later state that most of the alcoholic beverage was spilled on him and he'd barely drunk any of it. Aguilar's antics would be short-lived, as the car directly behind hers was driven by a Washington County Sheriff's Sergeant. He followed her vehicle and then pulled her over on suspicion of intoxicated driving. While she was in custody, it was determined that her blood alcohol level was 0.12%, contrasting the state's legal limit of 0.08. Number 4. Rasheed Ali Karim. On August the 10th of 2018, Florida woman Imane McRae was gunned down while in line at a McDonald's drive-thru in Bay Meadows, Jacksonville. At around 8:30, as the mother of 3 placed her order from the driver's seat, a man approached her vehicle on foot and opened fire. 32-year-old McRae was shot through the head and neck. She died at the Memorial Hospital less than an hour later. The killer then made off in a white 4-door vehicle. He was subsequently identified as 35-year-old Rasheed Ali Karim, with whom McRae had previously been in a relationship with. The woman had reportedly stopped seeing him after he'd become physically abusive, but her family reported that he'd been stalking her. In 2016, Karim was released from prison after a 4-year stint on a cocaine-related felony conviction in Duval County. It's unclear if his relationship with McRae predated his prison sentence. Karim was arrested the day after the shooting, and in the months that followed, he was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder, armed aggravated stalking, and armed burglary, which ultimately earned him 3 consecutive life sentences. Number 3. Elizabeth Ildefonso. In 2018, Elizabeth Ildefonso stopped at what she believed was a drive-thru window shortly after 10 a.m. and asked for a sandwich with bacon, egg, and cheese. The 44-year-old from Jamesport, New York, was severely impaired at the time, as instead of placing her order at a fast food restaurant, she was actually attempting to do so at the security booth for the Correctional Facility and Administrative Offices of the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. Even after being told by a deputy that she was at the jail, Ildefonso insisted that she really wanted a sandwich. The deputy noticed a white powdery residue in her nostril, in addition to her glassy eyes and dilated pupils. Ildefonso's vehicle was checked, and it was revealed that she had been operating it with a license that was no longer valid. She performed poorly under field sobriety tests and, instead of getting the sandwich she so craved, ended up in handcuffs. The woman was charged with driving while ability impaired and driving without a license. Today's topic was requested by Kimmy1984. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Incident in Somerville. In June of 2020, a man wrought havoc at a McDonald's drive-thru in Somerville in the Australian state of Victoria. The unidentified 23-year-old abused staff at the first window of the drive-thru before crashing his car into a bollard, causing the vehicle to flip on its side. He managed to free himself from the wreck and pushed a male paramedic who was trying to check on him. His onslaught continued as he reportedly headbutted a firefighter before being restrained by the police so that emergency personnel could tend to his injuries. He was rushed to the hospital where, following his recovery, he'd have to face assault charges, as well as further charges if proven that alcohol or drugs had been a factor in the crash. Number 1. Justin Ray Borsma. In April of 2021, a confrontation between 2 men at a Starbucks drive-thru in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, ended with one of them suffering fatal gunshot injuries. 19-year-old Justin Ray Borsma, driving a Nissan Versa, allegedly cut in front of a Chevrolet Silverado truck while getting in the drive-thru line. The second vehicle was driven by Samuel Joseph Rossetti, age 31, who then got out and approached the Versa. Enraged, Rossetti started banging on the driver's side window and ripped off the door handle. Borsma was in the car with his girlfriend and their infant. During the alleged attack, the woman had reportedly screamed, "We have a baby in the car," as Rossetti headed back to his truck. Borsma pulled out a gun and fired 3 shots at him. Rossetti would later succumb to his gunshot injuries at St. Mary's Medical Center. The teenager fled the scene, hitting another car with his vehicle as he drove away. Witnesses gave deputies the license plate number of the Versa, which led them to an address less than 10 blocks away. A surveillance drone captured a man covering the vehicle with a tarp, but it's unclear if Borsma was the one doing so. 5 people then left the home in a Nissan Sentra, including Borsma, his girlfriend, and their child. Deputies halted the vehicle at a traffic stop and conducted a search. They found a gun in a plastic bag under the child's seat with a caliber that matched the casings from the crime scene. Passengers from Rossetti's car were brought to the traffic stop and they identified Borsma as the shooter. Once in custody, he gave officers his account of the incident. He claimed that he was afraid for the safety of his family and thought that Rossetti had gone back to his Silverado in order to retrieve a weapon. It was at that point that he decided to shoot him. Borsma was charged with first-degree murder and firing a weapon in public, but there's a chance he might not be convicted. According to Palm Beach County criminal defense attorney Patrick McCamey, the case was basically built for Florida's stand your ground law. McCamey claimed that the defense could argue that Borsma had no reason to open fire with a child in the car if he wasn't genuinely afraid. Thanks for watching. What is your worst ever experience at the drive-thru? Let us know in the comments section below.